if you want to be creative, you have to know yourself. You have to know your senses. You have to know your experience, because we have these stories and memories inside of us. And sometimes they get caught and we get depressed and we get anxious. And we have memories and conditioning that really hold us in, that lock us in, that cage us in. And so we have to get to know who we are and where we are in this present moment, right? And understand what our feelings and our senses are telling us. And then if we can get to that place, then we can express it. We can let it, we can kind of open the door, we can open the gates, and we can begin to see it outside of ourselves. We can either let it go, release it, move into it. We have choices then. It's not locked up inside of us.
Welcome to the Baggage Begun Healing Hearts and Minds podcast. I'm your host, Tami Mahmali, a spiritual guide and hypnotherapist. I'm here to guide you on this healing journey toward holistic and spiritual well-being with ease. Each week, we will dive deep into the realms of self-discovery, offering you valuable tips, strategies, and actionable steps to help you restore harmony in your mind, body, and soul.
Hello, Jocelyn. Welcome to the Baggage Begun podcast. I'm super excited to have you with us today. Let me introduce you to our amazing listeners. So our guest today is Jocelyn Bates. She's a fabulous mom of 3 and a true master in bringing out aliveness and creativity in people. She wears many hats. She is a soul art guide, Akashic Record guide, yoga Nidra guide, and human design mentor. With over 25 years of experience, Jocelyn combines all her skills as an expressive art therapy and EFT Master Practitioner to help people find their true selves and their purpose. Jocelyn's own journey, including the recent loss of her parent, has deeply shaped her understanding of grief and creativity. Her work highlights the power of curiosity, creativity, and listening to your body in the healing process. I can't wait to dive into these topics and explore how they can inspire change, offer hope, and provide practical tools to our listeners and viewers to creating transformative experience together. Thank you for being here, Jocelyn.
Thank you for having me.
So glad to finally bring your light and have this chat with you so others can get the full benefit.
Yes.
So, Jocelyn, you're a soul art guide and expressive arts therapist. What a combo. Yeah. How do you weave these roles together to help people heal and grow?
So I was an expressive art therapist for many years. Right out of school, I had graduated in 2002, and I worked with a lot of populations. I worked with sexual assault and teenage girls. I worked in the juvenile justice system. I worked in domestic violence emergency shelters. I worked in rehabilitation centers with brain injury and spinal cord injury. And I've always understood the power of the arts. So I know it from a deep scientific level. I know it from an experiential level, from witnessing it with so many people. But because of those populations that I worked with, it wasn't just, people coming because of maybe anxiety or depression. It was these very, I don't know, harsh experiences and harsh places I was working in. And so when I had kids, I needed to take a step back because, like, specifically working with brain injury, I wouldn't let my kids climb trees because most of the people I worked with had these random things happen, like a tree fell on them and now they're quadriplegic, or, like there was so many that I stopped being able to be the mom that I wanted to be. So I kind of let go of expressive art therapy, but I always stuck with that creative piece of it. Like, I know the arts are healing, and I know that the more you jump into the arts, the more you shift from one art form to the other, which is, I was an expressive art therapist intermodal. That's what it is the intermodal shift. When I switch from art to writing to music to movement, that's where all of the healing really is beautiful and transformative. So I still did all of these things as a parent. And it wasn't until I had lost my parents 7 days apart, and I'm just coming up on the 3-year anniversary, that I decided to jump headlong into soul art, which is very similar to expressive art therapy in that it is it is pulling on all those same strings in me, right? It's resonating with all those pieces of art is healing. Like the expression is what heals us. The expression lives in our body. If we can express it, our stories, our memories, our feelings out of ourselves, then you begin the process of healing, and you get really curious with that. Soul art doesn't actually sit within the confines of therapy because, in the therapy world, there's a lot of margins you have to stay within. You're really that blank page for somebody or that blank screen for somebody in a lot of ways. You're dealing with a lot of systems. So like if I was in a domestic violence shelter, I'm dealing with these people who are working maybe also with psychiatrists and medications, and there's certain rules, right, that are involved in that. But as soul art, I get to release all that. And I just get to be a human being working with another human being and just guiding another person along. So it's very similar, soul art and expressive art therapy, and yet very different. I was saying for a while, expressive art therapy is like doing art on lined paper. And then, for soul art, it's like being like let loose into a blank room with all kinds of supplies everywhere and, maybe even a projector or two. So it's both. It's they feed each other in my life. I had the opportunity to understand arts and what their impact can be from my college years, and I got to live it and see it and breathe it and understand the impact. But then I was like, I don't like the system. And now I get to experience it in a totally different spiritual way where we work with the soul, with the inner wisdom, with the higher self, with all of this more. I think it's more infused with how I see life. It's much more in connection with how I experience this human thing that we have going on here.
Very important to understand the distinguished difference between soul art and art therapy. You talk about how important is it to be curious and creativity. Two of my favorite themes. Do they boost our well-being and healing? Maybe you got any fun exercise or practices we can try out in our daily lives to keep these qualities
Yeah,
alive.
yeah. Well, so, if you think about how we go to school, we're often taught not to get curious. When we get too curious, we're told, you're not going to get a good grade on that. You're going too far out the margins, right? It's like if you go and do a project in school and you're going really far out, they're like, you're not appreciated for that. You're not, this was what I was asking for. It wasn't this bigger thing, right? We're conditioned in a way to not get too curious, to keep things safe in their place and in their box, and it really jumping into your own curiosity in your life, in what you experience in life, is going to open up your opportunities, the synchronicities in life. It's going to allow you to go deep into your healing. And creativity is just a way to take that curiosity and express it to, in a different way. Creativity is innate to everybody. It's another thing that's been conditioned out of a lot of us through school, actually. Many of us think of creativity and it's like, oh, I'm not an artist. And I don't do that good. I don't do that right. I always got bad grades, or I don't want to be a starving artist. There's lots of conditioning around creativity out there. And so both of those, curiosity and creativity, it's not very valued in a lot of ways. But I was just on an Insight Timer last night live event, and I was saying, could you imagine the world if we didn't have curiosity and creativity? Like when I think of creativity and the most mundane way of how it shows up, and this isn't even mundane at all, is a really good conversation. Have you ever been in a conversation and like your body is like you're leaning in, and all of a sudden you feel that like boom, 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 boom. And before you know it, you're 2.5 hours into that conversation and you're like, and you came up with ideas and you looked at things differently. That's creativity at play. Like, could you imagine the world if we didn't have creativity? We would have no, like the inventions would be so dull. We wouldn't have so many things that we have around us. And that all happens because of creativity. So when we jump into curiosity and creativity together, that's where we start to change and transform in our life. When we start to build things around us that like jive us, that get us, like we talk about aliveness, that get us alive. And, there's really simple ways to start. I like to think about our body, right? That our body is our vehicle. And when I think about what we're doing here on this planet, I really think that we are a soul just living in a human body for this life in this experiment. And when our souls are not incarnated in our body, we know everything, right? But we don't feel anything. So we come into the human life to feel the human experience and to not know, right? And so we're here to feel, and our bodies are that vehicle of feeling, of knowing, of remembering. That all happens in our body. So the easiest way to get curious is to like take a walk and focus on one of your senses. You have what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? What do you feel? Right? Those are your five senses. I always add two more to that. I always think of memory as a sense, even though it's an umbrella kind of one. And then I also think of imagination as a sense. If you want to start to get curious in your life, decide to take a walk and set that intention on one of your senses. I'm going to really open up my ears. I'm going to really listen. I want to experience the next 5 minutes with truly like superpower hearing, right? I'm just going to really focus on that. And then just take your walk and allow all the layers and depths of vibration and sound to come in for 5 minutes. It's so simple, for 5 minutes, right? You might hear like the train two towns away. You might hear the birds, you might hear cars, you might hear crickets, like whatever you hear. Allow your sense to take that in. And when you hear something, like allowing it to register and then wonder, wow, what is that? Well, I wonder why is that bird, what's happening? Are they in love with another bird? Or, what, I wonder who's on that train that I hear right now. I wonder what journey is going on. And just allow your curiosity to kind of land in that sense and see how deep you can hear. And you could use that for any sense. You could do it for how you feel, what you feel, what you see, what you smell, what you taste, but just getting curious in your life. And that's just a really simple way to strengthen the skill in order to eventually move into creativity. Because if you want to be creative, you have to know yourself. You have to know your senses. You have to know your experience. Because we have these stories and memories inside of us, and sometimes they get caught and we get depressed and we get anxious, and we have memories and conditioning that really hold us in, that lock us in, that cage us in. And so we have to get to know who we are and where we are in this present moment, right? And understand what our feelings and our senses are telling us. And then if we can get to that place, then we can express it. We can kind of open the door, we can open the gates, and we can begin to see it outside of ourselves. We can either let it go, release it, move into it. We have choices then. It's not locked up inside of us. So I don't know if that was an answer. I totally went on a tangent there, but
I think it's very helpful to remember that our body is a very important part of us and how we can heal ourselves through listening to our bodies. And I like what you said about just be present and focus on the five senses and maybe activate them and allow all the layers and vibration and sounds to come out, whatever sense you choose to focus on at the time. Because sometimes we are so busy, we forget that we are human being in a
yeah,
body. And sometimes for me, I see how being present in seconds helps me to let go of my anxiousness or worrisome feelings or whatever is it at the moment, when I'm remembering that right now in my journey today, everything is okay. If I am just feeling whatever is going on right
yeah,
now without having to take all my past or the future with
yeah.
me. So I think it was very
Yeah,
helpful.
and even
Now,
if you're like, say you're in an emotion one day, say like one day, if you can remember this when you have anxiety or you're sad or something, do the same thing. Instead of taking a walk, sit down and like in your body, get curious, like, why am I anxious? What does it feel like in my body right now? Does it feel tight? Does it feel untethered? Does it feel heavy? What am I hearing right now? Am I hearing my own voice? Am I hearing a buzzing in the house? What am I hearing? What am I seeing? What memory is flooding me, and why is that memory flooding me? And if I could be in that memory right now, how would I change it? Like that's getting curious, right? And curious in a way that like jumps into your body, and you'll see how fast you can like kind of move through an emotion, especially when you're breathing into it. And you can learn so much. Our bodies and our emotions are tools for us. Our bodies are here for expression, right? And feeling. But every time we feel something, we're being given information, right? And if you think of yourself, this is how I like to think of it. If you think of yourself as a soul, which we are in a human body, and we're here to feel things, it makes it okay to feel it. Because when we're not here anymore and we're not incarnated in a human life anymore, we don't have that option until the next life. So we're here to feel the grief and the anxiety and the depression and the excitement and the joy and the sexual feelings. We're here to feel it. That's the point. So when you know that, it makes it a little more okay to go into it, even if it sucks. Do you know, like we're here to feel it.
Absolutely. And you emphasize honoring the body. How do you help others build a deeper connection with their bodies? And why is this connection so crucial for holistic
Yeah.
healing?
So when you're thinking about the body, our body is the instrument of creativity. It is our vessel, it is how we experience life, right? From everything, from memories to our thoughts come through our body, through our feelings, all of this, our body is how we experience both earth and spirit. We are the conduit. Our body is really it's like how we experience everything. It's our conduit. It's our conduit of experiencing the earth, of spirit, experiencing the spirit realm. And the first thing you have to do is to get to build that relationship with it, right? And so, I mean, there's so many ways to do it. You could go into so many different ways, from like breathing, deep breathing, or even like one of my favorite ways to immediately calm the nervous system and drop down is the physiological sigh. And it's just 2 gentle sips in through the nose, opening the mouth and sighing it out. And that's one of my favorite breaths. I'll do 9 rounds of that, and it'll bring me right down. Like, so you can do something like the physiological sigh to breathe, or you could close your eyes and do a body scan, or you can even use mindfulness. Like, you don't even have to close your eyes. You could just get quiet for a minute and then just look around, and without moving your body, you can move your head around, just find 10 things that are blue, or 5 things that are blue that are around you, or 3 things that are cylindrical. Those things bring you into the present moment, and they bring you here into your body. You know, if you're a woman, Kegels, like the Kegel, moving the muscle in the lower, right? That brings you immediately into your body. There's so many ways you could body scan. You could even, sometimes when I'm ready, bringing myself into my body, like trying to build that relationship, I use writing, because I'm using my body to write. I use stream of consciousness writing, or taking a cold shower. There's nothing like a cold shower to wake you up in your body, right? Like, or cold water on your wrists. There's so many ways to start to build that relationship. And it starts small. It starts like, okay, what, I'm just going to be here for a minute. And a lot of us have problems because we're not taught how to live presently in our body. We're taught how to judge our body and how to feel uncomfortable in it, and how to judge our feelings that are in our bodies, right? So you start small, and you just, every a few times during a day, just drop down. Feel, you can even put a hand on your heart and a hand on your belly. That's a way to just drop down into your body, right? But once you've started to develop that relationship, playing with the 5 senses, because those 5 senses, and I always include, like I said before, memory and imagination. But once you have once you kind of have that beginning relationship, to really jump into those senses, because that is the way in which, that's how we experience life, through our senses. So
Moving to intention, I know that intention is a big part of your work. You mentioned that before. How does setting clear, purposeful intentions help people tackle life's twists and
yeah.
turns?
So there's lots of ways to use intention. People use affirmation a lot. Intention is just a more personal, juicy form of it. um, I use intentions every new moon. I do like new moon circles, and I always work on intention in those circles. Like every cycle, we work on an intention, but you can have like an intention for the year. It's just like going back before, we said go for a walk, right? For 5 minutes, and just set the intention for yourself to like open your ears. If you walk outside, right? You already have intention anyways, whether you know it or not. If you're taking a walk, you're like, well, I'm walking to keep myself healthy, or to get fresh air, right? You already have an intention. You're just not getting up like an Autobot and going, I'm going to walk 5 minutes. There's already intention back there. It's not conscious. And so if you can start to consciously use intention in your life, then you can really build and create and transform into your life into what you want it to be. Like, there was a great meme I saw the other day, and it was, look where you are now, take stock of where you are now, because somewhere in your past you prayed for this. Somewhere in your past, you created this intention, and it may not have worked out the way you thought it would, right? You might be dealing with some really crappy experiences right now, but it might be teaching you the strength that you asked for, right? So why not intend consciously? And I am is the most beautiful and powerful two words, and you can develop these intentions that, and the beautiful thing about an intention is that you don't have to work on it. The energy is put into it when you create it, but then you can let it go because it does its work, right? It's like a piece of energy goes into that intention and it does its work. You don't have to pay attention to it. There's lots of, I think, ways to use intention in this world. And it is very telling when you see a meme like that and you're like, oh, what am I going through? And what was I intention? Like, what was I praying for? And here's a really very, like when my parents died, I felt very responsible. And I know it sounds really selfish and egotistical, but I was doing a lot of spiritual work. And I was like, I prayed for a really long time to find independence from my parents. And I was like, wow. And I don't hold myself to that, but that thought has flown around me a few times. Like, where was that intention? And I know it sounds very egotistic, and I don't really think like that, but these things come in when large things happen in your life, right? So,
Yes, absolutely. I liked when you said, look at where you are now. You have invited through your thoughts and your energy your life experiences. And I big believe because when we think about that, those experiences, we invite them to our energies. And when we take the responsibility for bringing things into our life, it helps us to feel that we are not victims. People, things, places are happening right now because they have a lesson, like you said before. And if we learn the lesson, it's very powerful for our growth. It's actually empowering when we learn the lesson, like you learned the lesson when you were listening to what was your intention. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, we get the awareness that it's
yeah.
empowering.
Yeah.
So I am sure our listeners would like to hear some juicy stories because you just talked about the juiciness. So I want to know if you got a story or example of how your expressive soul art therapy has helped someone find clarity or healing during tough times. Would like to hear how it worked. It's
Yeah,
magic.
yeah. Well, so I have examples of when I was working very strictly as an expressive art therapist, or when I have examples of even my own soul art journeys or people I've been working with in soul art. I tend to kind of intuitively work with people when they come in with what they're looking for. I spend some time with people to really what do we really need right now? It's almost like creating the intention for the work together. Some of the people I've been working with recently on I just finished guiding a soul art journey this week. And it's what I'm working on currently right now is this idea of a manifestation journey, this idea of falling madly and deeply in love with your life and transforming it from there, right? Like using that for the manifestation, not transforming it, but using that for manifestation, like that piece. And so many women are wanting to fall madly and deeply in love with their life, and they're not right now. And especially women like my age, Gen X area, like I'm 47, in that time frame, many women are feeling they want to fall back in love with their life. Their kids are getting older, right? All of this. And so I just recently did a soul art where that was the kind of journey I was bringing her on, was this kind to fall madly and deeply in love with your life again. And we were working with an intention about valued presence, which I think many women can relate to, wanting to feel that their presence is valued, right? Wanting to feel that not only do you value your presence, but you know what? I do a lot for my family. I do a lot for other people, and I want to feel valued in that. Right. And so we did a beautiful intention setting, and we went into what we would call in a soul art, working with the inner family and going into that union of opposites of that inner child part of us and the wise elder part of us. And we did a bunch of creative expression, and it was so beautiful. The I'm going to call it a birth that happened of this valued presence. It was a six no it was an 8-hour soul art journey, and it was absolutely like phenomenal. The magic that happened, the synchronicities that happened over those 8 hours was it was it like gives me chills up up my arms. Like the things from finding things in her artwork to being given things. And it was just amazing. All of that happens when you tap into the creative expression. And most people that I know that have come through my workshops or come one-to-one with me in that idea of that creative expression, because I haven't explained too much about it, but when we create expressively and we just jump into the process and allow it to happen because we've set the intention of what we want and we have a framework and a backbone to hold it, then you can kind of let loose into creative expression. That's magical. That's almost like channeling. It's channeling your inner wisdom, channeling your soul or your higher self out through the creative expression. People don't ever want to stop that. I find that like they really enjoy that place of people always end up this piece that this person created or this woman created was absolutely gorgeous. And she's not an artist. She's not an artist. She's never been an artist. And it's just vibrant and beautiful. And there's so many pieces to it, you know. She's surprised herself. She's like, I love it. She can't wait to hang it on her wall, you know, because it's like, and she had no clue she had the ability to do that, but she channeled through her creative expression because we created an environment where it was safe to do that. Normally in life, it's not safe to just, you know, jump into something like that because of all the conditioning, because of all the external rules, because of all the judgments. So it's very good. It's a really I have so many like amazing journeys into people's like personal journey and even going into some of the workshops they've done, but it's like their own personal transformation. So it's like they're seeing in their journeys where they want to go and how they can shift it. So yeah, right now I'm really into this idea of like truly and madly in love with your life. Like that like so resonates with me.
I totally agree with you. That is really juicy.
Yeah.
And being alive every day and learning how to be alive, it's really important for our daily, whatever we want to go through, if it's in our business, family life, relationships, to feel this juiciness of being madly in love with our
Yeah.
life. With all your experience in different healing techniques, how do you blend them for soul-led transformation? What should someone new to this approach know before diving in or contacting
Oh,
you?
so like for an example, like just for the journey I was just talking about that I finished this week with somebody, I brought in yoga nidra because I could tell there was like there was a little hesitation, there was a lot of thought going on. So I actually did a yoga nidra. I wasn't planning on it, but I'm like, you know what, let's just lay down and do a yoga nidra. Let's get into our subtle selves. And that, you know, and then before the journey started, I went into her Akashic Records and I got everything prepared by going into her records, seeing what she needed to be supported to fully allow herself to release into the soul art journey. One of those things, I filled the space with things that would create safety for her. So I use my work in the records along with my soul art, along with the yoga nidra. You know, I also knew she was a certain type in human design. So I know that, you know, she was a projector. So she needs to have space at moments and then, you know, really space to just connect right to her artwork without me. And then I can come in and I knew that from knowing her human design. Now, if I had another type in there, I maybe wouldn't have left as much space. I would have kept it moving, but I really let her self pace because I brought that human design in. So I use lots of things in different ways, and I like to meet people ahead of time, like beforehand. You know, I just did an Akashic Records session last night with somebody, and we met for like a half hour first to talk about like, gee, just tell me like what is it that you really want to accomplish through here? Are you looking to build skills in your own meditations? Or are you looking to understand your past lives? Just getting a sense of where someone's at, because it allows me to just be able to use my intuition with them and also to give them what they need instead of like, so I have people that come to me a lot for one thing and I'm like, I just need to give you your human design. That's what you need right now. Like you need to just understand your strategy and authority. So can we just do that first and then come back to me? Because I feel like otherwise when people aren't ready for all of the journeys that at once, right? People aren't always ready for that. Yeah.
I'm gonna move next to talking about your recent shamanic quest, which had 5 stages. We talked about it before our interview today. Can you walk us through these stages and share how they've shifted your view on healing and transformation. I thought it's going to be really valuable.
Yeah. So I went. So wait, when we were talking, I just came off a Vision Quest. Is that the one you're talking about? That was yeah. So I work with this wonderful friend of mine who's a soul shaman, and I just went on a Vision Quest, and man, was it amazing! I actually had never been on a Vision Quest before. This was brand new to me, and I tell you, the minute I signed up for it, like some piece of me started working on it. Like some energy went immediately there. And I've kind of set myself up because I took myself on a soul art journey beforehand. And I had a soul shamanism class where we went on shaman journeys also beforehand. So I was kind of excavating and finding my way, but I had no energy going 2 or 3 days into right before the Vision Quest. And then we went there and we talked and connected, and I found my space in the woods, and I was there the next day. And it was really, it was really crazy. I don't run Vision Quests, but I absolutely I feel like the process was amazing, and I would highly recommend people going on Vision Quests for themselves. I work in soul art, and in soul art, like right now in that one journey that I was talking, the ones that I'm working on now, which is this falling madly in love with yourself. The stages are like creating an intention, creating a framework, a backbone, and a spine to kind of hold it, creative expression, insight, and then spirit action to kind of take that energy back into yourself. So when you create an intention, just like before I went on the Vision Quest, my energy was in it before I was there because I signed up and I put my name on the paper, right? At that point, my energy is like, oh, we better get prepared for this because I don't know what's going to. It's the same in a soul art journey. You create an intention. And when you create that intention, like a little piece of you goes and takes it on its way in that journey. And then the last stage being spirit action, you set yourself up to do something. And when that thing is done, it's like a signal for your energy to come back. And so those are like the 5 stages. That's the basic stages of a soul art journey. There's lots of soul art journeys. There's ascension journeys, there's energy mapping journeys, there's body mapping journeys, there's birth journeys and manifestation journeys. And all of them have that kind of core framework, right? Like an intention, some kind of framework like a body map or an energy map, and then creative expression, insight, and spirit action. Yeah.
Great. So, for our listeners just starting their self journey and healing journey, what tips do you have for integrating or putting all these together, the curiosity, the creativity, and body awareness into everyday life?
Yeah. So, if you can start, I am a big fan of personally, like this is my thing. Like, and every day I meditate. I meditate every morning. I meditate every night, and I journey every day. So this is something that I do. But if you're just beginning, like just getting into a place where you have a breath work routine, just even if it's that physiological sigh that 9 times, that takes less than 2 minutes probably. Like once a day, like just starting there. And then the other thing that can really help you get present in your life, and this is a really simple thing. I love it actually, and I do it all the time because I like my sleep to be clean. And so before I go to sleep, and this is another way to do it without breath work or meditation, which probably everybody talks about those two things. Before I go to bed, I write down a circle and then I go backwards in my day. Either doing something like that physiological breath, but or a small meditation or a small mindfulness thing like we talked about earlier, like just sitting somewhere and noticing 4 square things, 5 red things, like that kind of thing can bring you present. But what I do at night, because I like clean sleep, is and I'm the kind of person that will take my whole day and I'll bring it right into my dreams and it'll keep me up. So I have started, and I started this years ago, putting a circle on a paper and then almost like it's a clock, working backwards my whole entire day. And what that allows me to do is just get out of me whatever happened during that day. And so that when I get back to like when I woke up that morning, I can go back to sleep. Like I can go to sleep clear. And sometimes I'll like write down my to-do list before I go to sleep because it allows me to sleep more fully, more restfully, more easily. So doing little things like that can begin that for you. But just getting the idea of just getting curious, instead of immediately, there was a beautiful Ernest Hemingway quote, and it's about writing. And I don't have it off the top of my head as we're sitting here, but it's about writing. And it's like, as you write, you don't want to judge, you want to understand, right? That's kind of the basic meat of the quote. And I feel like you can apply that to anything in life. In writing, you want to write your villains. You don't want to judge them. You want to understand where they come from. And that's going to make a villain that the audience can like really like get into, right? Whether they love or hate them, doesn't matter, right? Because you understand that villain and you've given them an entire backstory and you've like understood that character. The same thing in our life. When we have things like emotions that come up, we don't want to judge it. We just want to understand, well, why am I feeling that way? Well, okay, what is it? And if I have an emotion, and you could do this throughout the day, anytime you start to feel tired, that's how I found out that I needed a certain type of nap once a day, like, or just a rest, like an 8 to 9 minute rest will completely change my day. I would notice, like, always around 2 o'clock, I would be like, oh, I'm really like, I'm feeling it. And I would feel my back kind of sag. And I'd get very like, I don't care, right? I don't care. I'll just that was that apathy or something. And I started to get really interested in what that was. Like, why am I so apathetic? And that, if I was going to like, get loud with my kids, it would be around that time. Because it was like, I just don't want to be bothered at this time. And I got really curious with it. And I found out that if I have less than 9 hours of sleep, at that point, if I haven't rested, like I don't have a good day the rest of the day. But that moment of apathy, as I jumped into it curiously, like, where do I feel in my body? And I could almost feel like my cells going, let's go to sleep, like pulling the blanket up. Like, let's just go under bed and get like that's what I could feel in my body. So I started listening to it. And all of a sudden, I like I can go till late at night, and if I just rest, and it doesn't need like anyone could do this, because it's not like you have to sleep in bed. It's like I do a quick 10-minute yoga nidra, right? But it's like a deep rest. All I need to do is close my eyes for a few minutes, and my entire day changes. And so that was what that apathetic feeling was. And how did I play it out before I got curious? I yelled at my kids. I wouldn't really yell at my kids, but I would get like feisty with them, right? Like, I don't know, get it yourself or whatever it is, right? And all it was telling me you just need to rest for a minute. Just take a rest. Like, stop what you're doing for like 10 minutes. And so if we could start to get curious anytime you have a feeling, and feel into your body. What does it feel like? Oh, you can zoom in or you can zoom out, right? You can zoom in. Like if I have a feeling in my stomach, I can zoom in. What is the pattern? What's the texture of this feeling? What's the color? What's the range of this feeling? How big or how small is it? If it had to say something to me, what would it be saying? What would it sound like? What would it smell like? What does it look like? What does it feel like, right? And it takes not very long to do that. But every time you do that and you're jumping into a feeling in your body, you're getting curious and you're learning something. And sometimes like the weirdest things, like you think and for a long time, after my parents died, for a long time, I found that every time I get angry, when I started to listen to it, there was a deep well of sadness underneath it. So every time I got angry, and I had to get my husband to do this for me for a while. I'm like, when I'm angry, just remind me that I might be sad, because I couldn't get there sometimes for myself. And he would be like, what are you sad about? When I was angry. And I was like, and I would have a huge release of like just being able to say it to somebody for a minute. And so like you never know what's really, you have to get curious. Like you want to understand it, not judge it. That goes back to Ernest Hemingway, right? Try to understand your feelings, try to understand the sensations in your body instead of judge it. It's hard. We're humans. We've been conditioned to judge it. We've been conditioned to think we're like different than everyone, the same as everyone, or it's hard, but with practice and just a little attention, you can begin to develop that.
I was listening to you and I hear how important is our morning routine, or setting like a successful routine for our day before we starting. And I do start my morning with a prayer, meditation, journaling, breath work. I go to gym for physical exercise. Still, I see the difference. And I think it's important to each one of us to choose whatever works and just continue with that. Consistency helps a lot in the journey of self-discovery and
Yeah.
healing.
Yeah.
And
And just even to add to that, one of the best, when I can remember it, because I don't remember it all the time, but when I can remember it, when I wake up, I don't get out of bed right away. I sit there and I just go, how do I feel right now? Like, I start with presence. I can't always remember it because when I have to wake up to an alarm, like I jump out of bed sometimes and then it's like too late. Then I'm already like my heart's racing. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. But if you can, like, if you do wake up like on a weekend and you wake up naturally, just before you get out of bed, sit and feel into, like, how do I feel right now? And oftentimes you'll remember your dreams, or you'll remember the feelings of your dreams, even if you don't normally remember your dreams. You'll remember like sensations from the nighttime. And I feel like that sets up your day instead of just going right immediately to coffee or right immediately to whatever you do, right? Just sit down, give your start with like 2 minutes. I'm just going to sit here for 2 minutes and just experience the now, the very first moments of my day. And I think that does set up a lot, because sometimes you say to someone you should meditate every day and they're like, I can't. I was one of those people for 44 years. I couldn't meditate. I could moving meditate, which means I could get up, put some music on, and I could do qigong or I could do 5 rhythm stance, but I couldn't sit still. And it wasn't until my parents died that I learned how to sit still. And so you could say and meditate to a lot of people and they're like, I can't do that. A lot of people will say, I can't do that. Like, I can't sit still. I don't know how people do that. But 2 minutes under the covers, a little longer, or wherever you're sleeping, is absolutely doable for, I would say, most people.
I think here it's important to mention that this is a journey. This is not a
Yeah.
destination. That's why we're imperfect. I do my meditation, like you said, so imperfectly. I forget sometimes to be in my body because we
Yeah.
are human, you know. We're all trying our best right now. And the more we establish these routines, the better we
Yeah.
will get. Before we finish this episode, how can our listeners connect with you and dive deeper into your
Oh,
work?
yeah. So I have a website and it's jocelynbates.net. And you'll find on my website, I have like a widget to my Insight Timer page. And you could also just find me on Insight Timer at Jocelyn Bates. But on my Insight Timer, first of all, I offer lots of free meditations, free guided curiosities. I offer some talks on curiosity and creativity. And if you're an Insight Timer member, I do courses in automatic writing and intention setting. So that's there. And then on my website, you can find also my Substack. And in my Substack, I write about grief. I read about my journey of grief. Like, I just recently put up an article on how the things I learned parenting 3 kids through grief. Like, I just kind of talk about, so for anyone who's dealing with grief, it's that's what my Substack is for. It's for grief. And then on my website, which is jocelynbates.net, I offer all my services and kind of my background and who I am, and I have a blog there as well. So I'm on, let's see, Instagram at Soul Sessions by Jocelyn, and I think it's jocelynbates.5 or something on Facebook, but you could definitely find me.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn, for sharing your wisdom and experience with us today. Your insights into curiosity, creativity, and honoring the body are truly inspiring. And I'm sure our listeners will gain so much from what you have shared. Please, to the listeners, don't forget to check out the links in the show notes to explore more about Jocelyn's work. Thanks again for being here, and I can't wait to see how your work continue to light up and support others on their healing
Oh,
journey.
thank you.